Hi there, it's Misty. Welcome back to another card video. So I have a little bit of a different kind of video I'm doing today. Usually I share with you what I've made for this week's Simon Says Stamp Wednesday challenge, but instead I'm going to be sharing with you a couple cards that I made using a stamp set from the new STAMPtember release. Happy STAMPtember, by the way. If you guys know what that is, then you guys probably have shopped at Simon Says Stamp before. If not, there's a month-long celebration. It's Christmas, in my opinion. It's my Christmas, actually, but it's all month long. Simon Says Stamp has this huge release. It's an exclusive release for Simon Says Stamp, and they also have a bunch of collaborations all month long. The difference is the Simon Says Stamp exclusive items will be available even if they run out of stock. They will restock those, but the collaborations, they will not restock. So once they are sold out, they're sold out. So if you see any that you like, you might want to jump on it. So I actually just ordered a stamp set at 3 o'clock this morning. I just happened to get up and I saw this collaboration with Gina K Designs and I bought it, and by the time I woke up in the morning it was already sold out. So if you see something you like, you might want to jump on it. I'm using a new stamp set called Because of You, and they're pretty simple cards. I just wanted to share a couple different ideas with you of what I did with it. So I'm ink blending with Distress Oxide ink, which is on the right, and Distress ink is on the left. And the only difference is on the Distress Oxide I used Worn Lipstick, and then for the Distress it's Picked Raspberry, so I wanted it a little bit brighter. But I'm using the Geo Leaves stencil, and the other colors I'm using are Mermaid, Lagoon, and Squeeze Lemonade. But back to the STAMPtember really quick. If you want to know what's going on, go to the Simon Says Stamp blog, because every day they'll have something new posted there. And that's just a good home base if you want to see what collaborations are happening, or lots of inspiration over there and videos and stuff like that. So definitely head to the Simon Says Stamp blog. I'll have a link to it in the description below. All right, so I went over this with the 3 colors, took the stencil off, and then I went back over it just to give it a little more color so there was no white. And then I did the same for the Distress ink colors as well. And then I am going to heat emboss my sentiment, and I'm going to do it a couple times because I didn't know what shape I wanted to do. Up at the top of the screen I have a square die, and then I have still a square, but it's kind of a cool shape. So I just wasn't sure which one I wanted to use. So I'm just going to stamp it out twice and cut it out since I am a visual person, and then I'll decide which one I want to use. So I used my anti-static powder to begin with, and then I just stamped it with my Simon Says Stamp clear ink, embossing ink. And I did both of those backgrounds on Bristol Smooth cardstock too. It's the best paper, in my opinion, to use for ink blending. You just get a lot nicer, smoother blend than you do on the Nina cardstock or any other cardstock I've tried. So those are both on Bristol Smooth. And I got this new Misty 2.0 that I'm loving. I love that it has a little spot for the magnet there, and the rulers are etched in there. It's not a sticker this time anymore. So they've definitely upgraded the Misty. And the hinges are a lot more secure as well. My last Misty this size, they started to crack at the hinges there. So that whole side is all cracked. It hasn't actually broke, but it's all cracked. So they've definitely upgraded it. So I'm just using some of the Brutus Monroe Alabaster white embossing powder, and I'm going to quickly wipe away any of that stray embossing powder with my paintbrush, and then I'm just going to heat set it. Now the alabaster white is so fine that I didn't realize. I thought that was just anti-static powder that I was going to be able to wipe off, and it wasn't. It was actually embossing powder. So I should have been a little more careful about that, but that's okay. I'm still going to use it anyway. All right, I'm just going to cut these out super quick. And then the square one was still a little too big, but I have these stitched borders dies by Fawn, which I thought would be perfect. It's just a stitched border, and since it's a stitched square, I thought this would be perfect to shape it down a little bit. But the square and this border die are both by Fawn. And since it doesn't actually cut it, it just leaves the stitched border, then I'm just gonna trim it down and make it look like it was supposed to be that way. So right now it's 4 1/4 by 5 1/2, and I want to trim that down a little bit because I want a white border to be around it. So I'm going to use one of the stitched rectangle dies also by Fawn, and this way I can have a nice white border all the way around it. I thought about popping it up on some craft foam, but instead I'm going to pop this sentiment up on some foam tape. I'm using my Gina Connect glue here to glue it in place. This is my go-to glue lately. It's nice and strong and it dries clear. See, I like cards that have a nice big white border around it like this. Well, it's not that big, but I like them when there's even more of a white border. Kind of that clean and simple look. I'm not very good at the clean and simple look. I try, but I just keep feeling like I have to add more things to it. Drives me nuts. It really does take a special knack to be able to do those clean and simple cards. All right, I'm just adding 3 rows of the foam tape here. Or you can use a craft foam too if you want. Whatever your little heart desires. And of course I'm going to use my handy little T square ruler there to make sure I have everything lined up right. It's nothing worse than doing all this and then putting your sentiment on crooked, especially when it won't come back off. And I'm using these beautiful Color Burst Pearls by Studio Katia. It really is what the name of them. They're color bursts. There's all kinds of colors all over them, and I think they look really cool. And it was perfect for this background. So I'm just going to add a few of these. Make sure I have an odd number. I don't know what the big deal is if you have even numbers. I guess it's more pleasing to the eye to have odd number embellishments. To be honest, no matter how many there are, I count them every time. Doesn't matter if there's an odd number or an even number. All right, so that was the first card, the just distress background. This is the distress oxide, and so I thought I would go around the edge with my embossing ink, and I want to add some gold just around the edges. So I was a little worried that the ink was going to come off on my ink pad, so that's why I'm being a little gentle with it at first, but as I kept doing it, I saw that it wasn't coming off on ink pad, so that's why I was being so delicate at first. And then I totally forgot to test it to see if the ink was dry, so I was really worried about that. So I'm just trying to get the ink around the edge and the edge only, because I had a feeling if I would have put it, anywhere towards the center, it would have not come off. I mean, I could have taken a brush and brushed it off, but usually I like to check it first with the embossing powder just to make sure that the ink is dry, if you know what I mean. And I'm going to do the same with the sentiment here just so it kind of matches. I'm using the antique gold embossing powder. I thought it was kind of cool looking. So the stamp set has, it's called Because of You, but it has a lot of sentiments like this, like you, because of you, what is there? You inspire me, you make all the difference, you make the world a better place, kind of sentiments like that. It's sentiments that will make somebody feel really good, so I like stamp sets like that. And then just to make this card a little bit different, I'm going to add an island blue background instead of the white background. And I actually lost a little bit of footage there, but all it was me gluing everything together. So you didn't miss much. All right, so now I'm on to the next card. I'm using some lilac cardstock by Simon Says Stamp, and I'm going to go around the edges with Wilted Violet Distress ink, and then I'm going to do another one with the Distress Oxide ink. I'm not going to use the same colors this time like I did on the first two. I'm just going to you know, keep it in the purple family. So for this one, I'm using Wilted Violet, and then the next one, I'm going to use a Dusty Concord and some Black Soot. But so this one, I just wanted to get some color on to begin with. I'm going to kind of figure out where I want my sentiment here. And then I'll add a little bit more color before I'm then going to set it aside and let it dry for a little bit. So once I kind of figured out where my sentiment was going to go, I could see how much color I wanted to add. I'm going to add a little bit more, and I'm going to set it aside. I just want it to dry a little bit before I do the next step. So now here's the other background I'm doing, and I'm using Dusty Concord. And then I'm going to add some Black Soot around it as well. So this is the Oxide, obviously. It's got that kind of chalky look. So I'm going to do the same thing, kind of figure out where my sentiment's going to go. And then I'll add a little bit of Black Soot. It was pulling some of the purple down with the black, so I had to stop and clean my glass mat first. I really love how these colors turned out. I think this would make a really pretty Halloween card as well. Might have to use these colors again, actually, since Halloween is coming up. So I'm also going to use the Be Kind stamp set. I'm trying to figure out which stamps I want to use. I thought I was just going to use the one there on the left, but then I decided I wanted to use this kind of big one across the top. And before I do any embossing, I'm going to check this one this time. So I'm just checking it to make sure that the ink is dry, and it was a little tacky still, a little wet, so I'm just going to take my heat gun to it and try to dry that ink up. Much better. All right, so while I'm lining this up, I just got to tell you guys, we just got done painting our house. Never painted a house before, and I didn't realize what a pain in the neck it was to prepare to paint your house. The painting the house wasn't that bad. Well, it wasn't bad for me at all because my husband's the one that painted the whole thing. We sprayed it, but the prepping was, oh my gosh, that was a lot of work. Never again. Hopefully we never have to paint our house again. Has anybody else painted their house? It's not a lot of fun, let me tell you. And I usually like painting, but I didn't mind doing the primer, you know, you got the paintbrush out and doing a little painting here and there, but when you're looking at a whole house, it was a lot. I think I was in bed for a couple days after that. And I didn't even do all the hard work, my husband did. I'm just so glad it's over with. But it sure does look good, I'll say that. All right, I'm stamping this in 2 halves. I'm not sure why I did it this way, but you can also stamp everything at once and emboss it all at once. I'm always afraid that the ink is going to dry, or I don't know. I don't know why I never do it in one part. So I'm doing the first half, and then I'll do the bottom half. And I'm using gold embossing powder by Simon Says Stamp. And here's the embossing magic that I love to watch. I could watch this over and over. Just watching it melt, it's like magic. Love it. And then I'm going to use that other leaves stamp that's in the same stamp set, and I'm going to stamp it across the bottom twice. Yeah, it probably would have saved me some time to stamp it all at once and then pour the embossing powder on, but I like to do things the hard way. It's not by choice, that's just always how it turns out, but that's all right. You live and you learn. So as much as I didn't want to trim this down because I really like all that gold, I'm going to trim it down just a hair because I'm going to attach it to a black card base, and I just wanted to be able to see the black border. I always like having a border around my card fronts. It balances it out for me for some reason. See, gotta have that little black border. I'm using my Gina K Connect glue again. If you wanted to get it to stick, you gotta use what works. I always switch it up though. I mean, I'll go through phases where I'll use a tape runner all the time, and now I'm on to liquid glue right now. I'll switch it up and use a tape runner again soon, I'm sure. I'm just adding a couple of these kind of matte gold sequins. I love the matte gold. I don't really like the shiny gold. I love the matte gold though. And then that's going to be pretty much it for this card. So that's 3 cards I've done using this stamp set. So I'm going to go back to that other background that I was letting dry. And I wanted to let it dry because I wanted to use this background stamp. And this is the You Matter background stamp by Simon Says Stamp. And I'm using this L ruler from the Creative Corners by Misty because I wanted the whole background to get, I wanted this stamp to cover the whole background. So this way I can line it up, remove the ruler, and then stamp it right where I need it to stamp, and stamp it again if I need to. So see, I lined it up with the L ruler, took the ruler out, and then I'm going to ink it up without moving my paper. You know, I could have also put a little piece of removable tape on the back of my cardstock there, but I just skipped that step. And luckily didn't regret it. I actually didn't need to stamp it twice, so I just stamped it once. I got pretty good coverage. So this is Clear Embossing Powder by Simon Says Stamp. I'm just covering that whole background. And then I'll pour all that back in the container. Here again, it just looks so cool when you hit it with your heat tool. It just goes from white to this pretty purple. But see, that's why I wanted to add a little bit of the distress ink around the edges, and then I'm actually going to add a little bit more here in a minute. So I'm taking the Because of You stamp in this set, and I'm going to stamp it on some vellum. And I made it long enough so that I could wrap it around that background, and then that way I didn't have to put any glue on the vellum, because no matter what glue you use, I haven't found one yet that you can't see. And I could have glued it behind the letters here, but I don't know, it always looks weird to me when it's stuck in the middle and nowhere else. So I just didn't put any glue on the vellum at all, except for where it folds behind the background there. So just use that rectangle die again by Fawn. And I'm going to add a little bit more color. This is the Wilted Violet again. Now, I did it off camera, but I ended up spraying the background with the Sukaniko, wait, what's it called? It's Sukaniko Sheer Shimmer Spritz in Sparkle. That's the name of it. Wow, that's a mouthful. But it just gave it a nice fine layer of glitter on the background. So see, here's where I'm going to tape the vellum in place. And this way I don't need any glue on the front. And then once I get my vellum in place, I'm going to finish this up by attaching it to a white card base. And then I'll add a few of the clear round drops by Studio Katia. And that'll finish off my 4th card. Oh yes, of course, my tape runner had to run out here, so that's why it's always good to have a backup. That way I didn't have to stop and refill it right here. So see, some cards I used my liquid glue, and then here I am using my tape runner for some, so they both work well. All right, now that is my 4th card. I think I'm going to add the clear drops here in a second, but I'm going to quickly show you the 4 cards that I made, and these are all for the STAMPtember release. I used a stamp set called Because of You. So head to the Simon Says Stamp blog if you want to see all the collaborations and the whole Simon Says Stamp release. It's a great release, lots of goodies in there. And head to my blog if you want more information on these cards. And let's see, all the products I use will be listed below in the description and over on my blog. And yeah, I'll see you hopefully next week for the Simon Says Stamp Wednesday challenge. And thank you guys so much for watching. Bye.